And good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have alongside today Mr. Bob Cross, the now retired St. Albans Town Fire Chief, but someone who is still very active in St. Albans Town. And Chief, I think I'm going to always call you Chief. I guess that's okay, huh?
I guess.
Anyway, but good to see you. Thanks for coming on board. So, boy, a lot of stuff to talk about, but, just talk about devoting your life to the St. Albans Town Fire Department, or a pretty good hunk of it. But I should note, you're now retired, and Matt Mulheron, your successor?
He is.
As the Town Fire Chief?
Absolutely.
Who's the city? the city fire chief?
Matt Mulheron is the city fire chief also.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so he's got both jobs. But again, you still have your position with the town. I guess it used to be the Public Safety Administrator, and you tell me a different name to it now? Or?
Yeah, that's what I was hired as, is the Public Safety Administrator,
okay.
Which this job was designed to do the administrative work for a volunteer chief. So, and it was just we were fortunate that I was the chief, and we got this.
Sounds like that worked out very well.
Position going.
Yeah.
But the outlook for it was that if once I decided to retire or whatever, that a volunteer fire chief, if they didn't become full-time, if they were just a volunteer, then they'd have somebody to do the administrative work, which was, the NIFRS program, doing all the reports, fire reports, keeping up with all the records and everything. So the chief wouldn't have to do that. He could, concentrate on his day-to-day job. Yeah, so.
And now there's a different title to that job. You've added health officer.
Correct. Now they're calling it the public safety officer and health officer.
Health officer.
The health officer. I've had that position since the day that Dave was Dave McWilliams was a health officer when I first started, and then when Dave decided to retire, then that's when I became the health officer.
But basically the same job. The job itself hasn't really...
Pretty much the same job, yep.
And it sounds like that job, and how many years do we go back? How long have you had the paid job?
Since I got hired December 15th, 2014.
2014. Oh, is that right? That long? Boy, time flies.
Yeah,
I would have had it not nearly that long ago.
It sure does.
Is that right? So coming on 10 years for that job?
Yeah.
And that sounds like that made a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
It was just the paperwork, just keeping up with all the stuff running the department.
Well, we found out that, there was a lot of regulations that had to be done, like a public personnel safety procedures that we had to come up with. So fit testing, there's pump testing, hose testing, all that ladder testing, all that has to be done annually. So we have to make sure that stuff keeps getting done and it's documented. So.
Yeah. And another issue, as I recall, was just when calls came in. We're talking volunteers. So a lot of folks, obviously, who are busy doing other things. Was it also some of the thinking also having somebody at the department can just pick up and see if it's necessary to call out? That was another factor, was it not?
That was another factor. We get a lot of alarms during the day with all the new construction and the industrial park and everything. And those alarms have problems every now and then, or a sprinkler goes into malfunction or something like that. So, it pays to be able to say, this guy doesn't have to leave his full-time job for something petty, and when it comes time to leave his full-time job, then it's going to be a legitimate reason. So
let's get into some background. Folks around here know yourself and your wife. You've been around here forever. Most folks do, but give us some background on yourself. And one question,
sure.
Bob, I've always called you Bob. Harold Bob Cross. Where did Bob come from?
That's my Robert's my middle name.
Oh, okay.
So my father I'm a junior.
Okay.
So my mother would say Harold. She didn't want any confusion there. So she always called me Bobby. And my sisters always called me Bobby, but my father called me Pete.
Oh, he called you Pete?
Yeah.
Where did Pete come from? Who knows?
I knew that if he said Pete, I knew who he was talking to, and I knew that I needed to pay attention.
Interesting. So that's for Bob.
But,
So you run into some folks. Are there some folks who call you Harold?
Not very many.
Not too many.
No.
Yeah, no. So Bob or Bobby, pretty much.
Yeah, most people call me Bob.
Right. So tell us about yourself. You guys have been around here for...
all my life.
Oh, no, your life.
Probably the first 19 of my years were in the city of St. Albans, lived on Ferris Street.
Oh, yeah.
And grew up in all the city schools and BFA.
Yeah.
And then when I got into the age of 19, 20, 21, then I started living in the town and dating a girl in the town, and so that's pretty much. And actually, Roy Pera was my mother's cousin's husband. So and Roy was the chief.
Cousin's husband.
Yeah, Pat Pera was my mother's cousin.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah. So
of course, the former fire chief,
the original fire chief.
Firehouse is named according.
Correct.
So the original. In fact, that's another issue. So did you get? Were you interested in firefighting at that point, or not that early?
I worked for Bob Murphy, and they asked Bob Murphy to be on the fire department because he was so close to the fire station.
And this is city fire department at this.
No, this was town. This is town. Yeah.
Okay, just after the town had started.
So Bob Murphy, I worked for him on Murphy's Auto Repair on Church Road in my younger years, and they asked him to join the department, and he got on the department, and then when he started, that's when they had the red phones.
Oh yeah, the red phones.
Yeah, and he had a red phone in his house, and when he'd get up and go to a fire, I said, yeah, maybe I'd be interested in that. So that's exactly what I did. I won Maple Festival parade. After the parade, I went over and I talked to Roy, and I said, what would it take to become a firefighter on the fire department, on the town fire department?
Yeah.
And he says, come to Monday night meetings. We meet every Monday night. So he said, come down Monday night and we'll sign you up. And that's what I did.
Still do? Is that hasn't changed, has it? Or?
No, it hasn't changed at all. We still meet on Monday night, every Monday night. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
And we're going back to what, mid to late 70s when you hooked in?
76.
76.
Yeah.
And give us a background. Of course, I blew into town in November 75. I think right after a few days after the Edmund Fitzgerald, the ore tanker in the Great Lakes went down. Easy to think when I blew into Vermont. But again, the town fire department had just started, what, a year before, 74?
75.
Or 75.
75
so
is when they were established, yeah.
That's right.
I think the first fire they went to, was actually on Kellogg Road. And it was in September, I think it was. But
really?
I actually found the old St. Albans Town Fire contract.
Really?
That was written in 73.
73?
Yeah. And the town was paying $15,000 to the city.
Yeah.
Based on the population.
Okay.
So.
And that price went up. Was that one of the reasons that
was one of the reasons why I think the town wanted to go on their own. I think the city was going to raise their annual fee, and plus they wanted them to buy a tanker truck. I think that's what I had heard.
Interesting.
And so the town, there was grant money out back then, so the town says, I think we're going to start our own fire department. So
really, and this is a select board. Were there any key town people who, in particular, wanted to start a town fire department? I realize we're going back a few years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Frank Montaigne was on the board at that time.
Jay Frank.
Yeah, and maybe Alan Brooks. And I'm not sure who else.
So it sounds like they got a little upset at the city and said, "Hey, might as well do our own department."
Yeah. So and Roy was he actually had some background. I think he was on the city fire department years prior, but so he was probably the only one that actually had some fire experience. So
so he was a natural choice for the first chief. It sounds like. Yeah. So until that time, there had just been obviously just the St. Albans City Fire Department that had covered the city and town for all the years.
But the contract was very, very vague on that.
Really?
Yeah. It was if there was an emergency in the city, the town and the town at the same time, the town wasn't going to have anybody.
Wow, interesting. So. I should note, for what it's worth, in case any crazy stuff happens before people see the show, we're taping the show on Tuesday, January 16th. With town meeting day not too far away, March 5th. So, in fact, I think of town meeting day. I think the last St. Albans city budget that went down was when the city had downsized the city fire department big time, which was pretty controversial at the time.
Yeah.
So looking back, does that? And it's funny, Matt Mulheron, your successor as the town fire chief, also the city fire chief. So maybe talk. What do you think? Are we likely to be talking about one fire department maybe at some point in the maybe not too distant future, or who knows?
That was my plan back in 2007.
In fact, I think that's funny. And I read the messenger story at Josh Ellerbrock, who I've never even met, but had some good words for you. But reading that story, I remembered you had a proposal, and I had totally forgotten. I probably have it in the rubble in my house somewhere. But and that was a pretty specific proposal. And for that, was that to get the departments together again, or refresh my memory about that?
When we first talked about it back in 2007, the city was going through a hard time. I mean, they were paying some big dollars for fire protection, which all of it was going to salaries and nothing was going to anything else.
Right.
We got involved, and we actually helped get the call force back into action, into service. They weren't being counted on for a lot at that time. So the idea was the city's budget was here and our budget was here.
Right. Because
So
of course you weren't. Were town firefighters getting like a stipend or anything at that point if they responded to a fire?
Yeah. So town fire. So what was happening was the town firefighters were getting double the pay from the city for going to city calls too at that time. I don't think the idea at the time was not to put both fire departments together completely.
Yeah.
I mean, our assets and their assets were entirely different.
Sure.
But it was more of a personnel, manpower type thing where if we could get the budgets kind of down to where they needed to be, both communities be able to afford fire protection by just personnel.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the city doesn't have adequate equipment, because they do.
Yeah.
They got a brand new pumper on order that they should be getting within this year and next year. Probably
really?
next year.
New pumper?
Yeah, they got a new pumper that's replacing their oldest truck, and so they're in really good shape. We're in fantastic shape. We have a new truck on order that's coming also in the next couple of years. It's a pumper rescue.
And I know you made the point in the messenger story, town taxpayers comes up every year. Is it $250,000 that's in the budget for fire equipment, or some?
175,000. They raised it to 175,000 a year. That goes into the reserve fund.
And I suspect that's never ever been. That's a separate line item, I think. Is it?
So it's a line item. So it was a line item. So we put that in there. So that money goes in every year until we decide to vote again to either raise it or lessen it.
Okay. And I suspect that's never ever gone down. I suspect that's been approved every year.
Never. Yeah. So we approved it this past year to raise it to 175. We're at 125. They raised it to another 50,000.
Yeah.
And it's infinitive until we decide to either vote again to either lower it or raise it.
Yeah.
And I think the outlook is to raise it another 25,000 in probably 5 years. So it's 200,000. And at that time, it should level out. Because right now, with the length of time that we're waiting for apparatus, we don't prepay anymore. So what we do is we take that a good chunk of money, like 500,000, we put it in a CD, and so we gain 4% interest on a CD.
Wow.
And so that's how we're doing it now. So.
Interesting. Boy, I guess you would know this. Was it an area department that had paid for a new fire truck, but they weren't happy with what they were getting, so they didn't end up getting it? Seems like I read about that somewhere. But is it hard? Are there fewer companies out there making fire trucks? It sounds like it takes a while, huh?
Yeah.
It's not like you have, hey, here's $1 million, deliver the truck next week, maybe in the next year or two.
Yeah, it's a 2-year process now, where it used to be 180 days from the time you signed a contract. Now it's 2 years.
Is that right?
And
Are there fewer manufacturers?
And it's not because it's fewer manufacturers. It's getting motors, getting pumps.
Really?
It's the market for the equipment that goes on the pumper.
Really?
Motors, pumps.
Wow.
Rear ends, axle beams.
Is that right?
So that's, and for the commercial trucks like International or Freightliners, I mean, the dealers only get so many trucks a year right now.
Yeah.
And once their quota's done, they're all done buying new trucks. They get new trucks delivered, and that's it.
Interesting.
So
So equipment-wise, St. Albans Town Fire Department in pretty good shape?
The town fire department's in great shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And city too, would you say?
I
or-
would absolutely say the city is in
Right.
good shape also.
And at this point, can I assume, like, the city and town wouldn't be going after the same kind of truck? Is there some or not necessarily?
Well, I think my view on this
Yeah.
is, I think as far as the town and city goes, I think manpower is always going to be an issue, and that's an issue for any fire
Sure.
department or any
Yeah.
police department or any EMS.
Rescue squad,
Yeah,
whatever.
any of them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way it is right now, and,
Yeah.
and not just that, it's the job
Sure.
cycle out there. I mean,
Sure.
there's just nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
So, combining manpower and paying for the manpower between the two municipalities
Yeah.
just makes more sense to me anyways.
Yeah.
But some people say different, and I
Yeah.
just think before you're done, I think that's going to be the right thing. Asset-wise, I think trying to figure out how to divvy that up, I guess you'd have to have, if you combine both departments,
Yeah.
apparatus and everything, I think you'd have to have ISO come in and see what actually you need for pump capacity, for tankers and so forth. That would be the next thing, is if you combine the two communities together in one department, I think you'd have to have ISO come in and they would delegate what you really need for equipment. So we probably would be over-equipped right now as far as two municipalities together if we were to combine together. But as far as manpower goes, we're not.
Yeah, population-wise, just about exactly the same. In fact, in case
Yeah.
people missed it, St. Albans Town is now the largest municipality of Franklin County's 15 municipalities, having just got by the city in the last census. So
Call-wise,
populations are very,
Yeah.
and of course with the city, with the police coverage changing, of course, on July 1st, when St. Albans City PD will
Right.
resume coverage in St. Albans Town. I guess they're basically city and town are splitting police coverage 50-50 pretty much.
Yep.
So a merged department, is that's certainly possible in the future, or?
I would think so. I mean, it only makes sense.
It would make sense to you.
It would. I mean, it made sense for me since 2007.
Right.
I
So
mean,
go back to that, and now that you talk about that, I remember your proposal. Yeah, you gave that a lot of effort. And was that right before that the city ended up downsizing, or?
it was right during.
It was right during that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so you were just trying to kind of facilitate a difficult situation there.
Right.
That's right, yeah. No, that's the last city budget that I remember that went down with just all the controversy about that.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, I mean, it made sense to have a St. Albans Town Fire Department. I mean, that's been a good hunk of your life, but I guess it made sense. Obviously,
Yeah.
the folks in St. Albans Town, I'm sure there are some strong feelings about that, but I guess people over the years got used to having two pretty good departments around here.
Yeah. At first, it was kind of like butting heads. We didn't know what we were doing, and
Yeah.
so forth. But
Yeah.
through the Mutual Aid Pact, in which
Yeah.
the town absolutely did signed as soon as they became a fire department, signed in with Mutual Aid city, which the city was also involved in.
Yeah.
So there was nobody that said, we're not going to respond in your
Right.
because we're upset about this. They're just everybody worked together. I mean,
Right. I thought to the messenger story, I think there was a reference that mutual aid pacts just went back to the 1980s. I guess I thought they were.
No,
They've always
no.
been there. Or
the Mutual Aid Pact was there before the town fire department
that's what I would have
started.
guessed.
I think it was in the 70s, early 70s.
Yeah.
So,
And that's worked out pretty. I mean, that's worked out pretty well. Talk about what would seem to be an obvious, common sense, essential thing to have.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it was, yeah. And so when they came up with the County Mutual Aid Pact,
Yeah.
the Municipal Mutual Aid Pact back, I don't know, I think when Dan Lindley was here, I think we had quite a few meetings, and I think Bob White was instrumental in writing it. They kind of based that on what the County Mutual Aid Pact was. They kind of worked it off that
Yeah.
because it's worked so well for so many years. So.
And again, when you say county mutual aids, or does the whole county, all the departments are kind
All
of
the
hooked
departments.
together?
Yep.
And everyone,
Plus, we have departments from Canada.
Definitely
we have
see
Cambridge is part of our mutual aid.
And New York, I assume, like Rouse's Point.
Not
New York.
No.
Okay.
But Milton is part of our mutual aid pact.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So that's worked out. And that would seem to be just an essential thing to have.
Oh, absolutely. If you didn't have mutual aid, and it would be really tough.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could handle a large fire today.
Yeah.
Even back years ago. I mean,
yeah.
Everybody's got more, newer and better equipment today, but still you got to have the manpower.
And that sounds like a huge issue, which you've touched on already, just staffing. Give me the size. How big is the St. Albans Town Fire Department? How many folks have you got now?
Before COVID, we had 34.
34?
After COVID, we got 24.
So that's what you have right now?
Currently, we have 24.
24. Interesting. So COVID definitely hurt.
24 was our first maximum number of firefighters we could have back when we started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. How many women? How many females?
We've had females. We don't have any on board right now, but we've had females.
Yeah. Would you like to see more females? I mean, I assume you'd like to see.
Sure, they can do just as much as we can. They can do just as much as males sometimes.
Yeah, but there haven't been just pretty few females have been members.
And the ones that we've had really were go-getters and very good. They did their job well.
Yeah, I assume that's typically the case around the state or around the county and maybe the country, or have you not got a good handle on that?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, but at least around Franklin County, I don't think we're talking a lot of female firefighters.
Well, there's a few in Highgate.
Yeah. I think Alberg. Seems like I saw a story in Alberg.
Alberg's got some, correct.
They were making an effort to
Cambridge
get some more.
Cambridge has a few. Milton has a few. Fairfax has a few. So, yeah.
Wow. So when did you become chief, Bob?
Around 1994.
1994?
Yes.
Interesting. And officially stepped down as chief, again, taping the show on Jan 16, just, pretty recently, or?
Yeah, actually it was November.
November.
Yeah, that's when elections are, is in November. It's time. There's time for change, number one.
Of course, I guess read that in the last town report. Nothing I had thought about it. I said, geez, Chief Cross, and I guess you mentioned that in the last town report that you were looking to retire.
Well, at the Bassett Farm fire, it was, I think the wind was blowing. I think it was like minus 20.
Wow.
And it was 2:00 in the morning, and I looked at my assistant chief, which was
Matt
I said, what am I doing here?
Yeah, interesting.
I said, I'm 66 years old. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
So
I hear you. I mean, I'm not a young guy, just dealing with, and recent winters have been pretty soft. I've collected weather data, official National Weather Service data going back to my first day up here. So for folks who say, hey, winters are still tough, hey, let me show you what, weather temps from January 1980 or whenever. But I mean, just for folks just going outside in wicked weather, and to think, folks are dealing with a fire, it must be, I just can't imagine.
And the gear that we have today keeps you a lot warmer than the gear that we had back when I first started.
Right.
I mean, when I first
mentioned
started.
the messenger story, you mentioned kind of a funny thing about that gear, in that it can almost, not unsafe, but you don't feel the heat.
That's what our biggest problem is today. So back years ago, when I first started on the fire department, we had 44-inch coats, which came down almost your knees, and you had 3/4-inch rubber boots that came up above your knees. Yeah. So you were protected, your body was protected, but you still felt the heat.
But you also knew what was going on.
And so we didn't wear hoods back then.
Right.
So we had helmets. So what actually told us when it was too hot to be in there, it was when your ears started getting hot, it was time to get out.
Yeah.
So that's what we had back then. And today, we cover our firefighters up so well with thermal lining that they had no idea what the temperatures are inside. I mean,
and that can be a problem.
They come out with their Bork shields melted down. You could, and I'm going,
wow.
Look at what we've put ourselves into now.
Yeah. So back to staffing, that sounds like just a huge issue, as you've talked about, for fire departments, police departments, rescue squads. I mean, everybody out there. So 20. Are you comfortable with 24? I mean, would you like that to be backed up to 34, or you'd always take more folks, or is that a pretty good number?
Always take some more folks.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see the membership back up to 34, but
Yeah.
because this is how a volunteer fire department works.
Yeah, tell us.
So if you have 34 members,
Yeah.
you're guaranteed to have at least 20 to 22 at a meeting.
Okay, so about two-thirds or so?
Right. So the less people you have, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't get the numbers right now, because we're fortunate that we do.
Yeah.
But it can happen where if you have 24 members, you might have 15, 16 at a meeting night.
Yeah.
So.
And what about a fire? Obviously, some people are always going to be away.
Most of the time at fires, we have a good turnout.
So you get most of your members if you need them at a fire.
Yeah, with the exception of if they're working during the day and whether or not their employer let them go.
Yeah, and our employers have you. The employers, have they been pretty good about this, I trust, over the years?
Local employers, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're working at IBM or something like that,
Sure.
and you have a structure fire during the day, by the time you get here, and by the time you get settled, leaving your work and everything, by the time you get here, it'll probably be pretty much over with.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why we have mutual aid in the great.
In the first place, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, so staffing just sounds like and again, labor shortage, not to mention for all the employers around here, and it sounds like everywhere.
Yeah, we're not alone.
Boy.
That's for sure.
Sure, yeah.
So.
So the recruitment effort, you always, any specific ways to try to recruit people, or?
Well, we try to get the cadet program. We used to have a great cadet program.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember hearing about that.
I guess most of your firefighters that you have today are usually from families of firefighters, and we don't see that as much anymore because there's so much going on. I mean, I can relate to this. I mean, there's soccer, there's hockey, and there's so much intramural stuff going on that and I think that's what one of the things is that why we lose some people, and then they go off to college and they want bigger and better things in their lives, which nobody can be faulted for that.
Yeah. I suspect the demographic for firefighters is not getting younger. Has that gotten pretty an older demographic? I mean, typically older firefighters.
Yeah, I mean,
not to beat up on older people.
I know.
Hey, you're looking at one of them right here.
I'm thinking the average firefighter for the town right now. I'm gonna say in there between 35 and 40.
Is that right?
And
we're
fortunate.
Used to be much. Boy, is that right? I would have guessed a lot older than that.
But some departments are older than that.
Yeah.
And so I mean, this is one of the things that we're really having a trouble dealing with. I mean, firefighting is for the young at heart, and it's not for the old. Yeah. That's for sure. But
training obviously is, and that, I guess you run into that. I mean, boy, we're not talking a short process. If I say, hey, Chief, I want to be a firefighter, sign me up. I mean, it's a pretty involved training process, as I guess it should be. But has that gotten more involved over the years, Bob?
So,
what does it take? If I'm telling you, I'm a younger guy, I wish. Hey, I'd like to be a St. Albans Town firefighter. What do I need to do?
So you come down on a Monday night, sign up.
Yeah.
We familiarize you with everything, with our equipment and everything. Yeah. You're not allowed to do anything until you've taken the proper. So they do. The county has a 45-hour essential course that I haven't seen for a while, but because of low turnout, we don't have anybody showing up. But if somebody comes in, so then you have to take a level 1 course. And that's, I think it's 160 some odd hours.
Really?
The first one that I took was 210.
Really?
And that was the first level 1 course for Franklin County. And so they were just trying to get the workings of it. So
how long did it take you to get that done, to do that?
Took a year.
A year or so.
Yeah. So, so that's what it is now. So basically what it is it takes somebody that's never had any fire experience at all, and they put them in a class and they start them out teaching them the fundamentals of everything: fire, building construction, safety equipment, and pretty much that. And then when you get into fire 2, then it goes into your aerial devices, extrication and stuff like that. But
of the 24 members of the town fire department, these folks have different kind of specialties, or they all get the same training? Are they all technically able to do anything that comes up or not? Can they all drive trucks or?
No, not everybody's a truck driver. Not everybody's involved in the Marine unit.
Okay. In fact, that's another. I wanted to ask you about that. I remember when you started the Marine unit.
Yeah.
So people have different
they have to
things
be they have to get qualified on a piece of equipment before they're able to operate it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how that works.
Boy, it sounds like, is it a concern? I suspect it is, that you're just going to just not have enough people? You're going to just run out of people?
That's what we're hoping not to do. I mean,
right.
BFA used to have that program.
Oh, really?
Firefighter, EMS, and police program they used to have.
Oh, is that right? BFA had? I think
Mike
it's St. Michael's. Doesn't St. Mike's have a program like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mike Antoniak was the instructor on it.
Huh.
I think Matt actually assisted in the instruction on that. He was a substitute instructor on that class.
Huh.
And unfortunately, they just aren't getting people to even get in there, and
Wow.
and it's too bad. But
So I guess the concern is if you start running out of people, St. Albans Town has been a volunteer department for forever. You get down to, well, I guess if we can't get volunteers, we're going to have to pay people and have a paid department.
that's the thing, and
so I can only assume that's happened in some places.
I think it just happened in Colchester,
In
2 years
Colchester?
ago, right?
Is that right?
So,
interesting.
and so when you look at that and you start having to hire personnel,
Yeah.
that was the other thing I always looked at. So
Right.
would it be beneficial for the city to hire 5 people to sit in their station, and beneficial for the town to have 5 people, so a combined member, when 5 people could do both communities,
Yeah.
and share that payment?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not here to plug that.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But
We
it
got a
sure
new chief in place, so
But it sure sounds like that makes
I'm not trying to step on his
sense.
toes.
But of course, let's talk St. Albans City. Are we talking still some paid? Of course, they downsized the department. There's still some paid firefighter?
So, yeah, the chief's paid. He's
paid.
also the building inspector.
Okay.
They have a full-time firefighter that's there on duty. That's also a building inspector, has his building inspector's license. So they have 2 full-timers on during the day.
So 2 full-timers?
Yes.
And the call force, is that what the city fire department calls? Is that what it's called?
City now has a call force.
How
correct.
big is that? Do you know?
I can't answer that one.
Don't know.
I don't know for sure.
Huh. And these are folks who would help out if the town has a fire with mutual aid.
Most of the time, if the town or the city has a structure fire,
Yeah.
both departments are there.
Right.
That's-
Interesting.
That's
Sounds
just
like
it.
sounds like a serious structure fire in Winooski. I just saw a little bit on the news about that last night or this morning.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, the incidences of fire, and again, in my reporting days for many years around here, I would go obviously to a ton of fires. Has the incidence of fires, has that changed much, Bob? Or are we in better shape? Are there fewer fires? Or can you talk about that a little bit? Or
I think I think people are more fire conscious now.
more fire conscious?
I think some of the homes that we have are a little bit more built a little bit more on the fire safe side of
and
things.
typically with newer homes, you would think would be the case.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, and because most homes have first alert fired detecting systems and stuff, and some homes now are actually wired right into a call.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah, a lot of residentials are, and so these first alerts are essential on getting into the department there early.
Wow.
But yeah, the houses, I think, people are more fire conscious, and I think we haven't had the fires, knock on wood.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I think the biggest thing is getting there within the first 10 minutes.
Is that right?
That's the big thing.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Boy, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So again, you're typically at the town with your day job, with your
Town
regular
fire
job.
station, yeah.
You're typically at the town fire station.
Correct.
So a call comes in about an actual fire. How soon will you get some folks down there? I mean,
So we have also part-time people that are there sometimes. So we're allowed part-time personnel during the week, and usually that's around 30 hours, 25 to 30 hours. So normally there is somebody else there at the station with me. So depending on the call, we can have a truck on the road within 3-4 minutes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. But 10 minutes, I mean, obviously the sooner you get there, it's just is a key factor.
Yeah.
Right.
So when it comes in as a structure fire, that's a little bit, you probably get a little bit quicker response for this fire station than you do for the alarms.
Sure.
So we might be leaving there with a pretty full truck.
That's right. Any rough stuff? How many structure fires in a year? Have you got a rough figure for that? I mean,
I think last year, we had maybe 6 or 7.
Really? So
vehicle accidents are probably the big ones right now.
Right.
But again, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate as far as automobile accidents. I think cars are built a lot different than they were back years ago. They take an impact a little bit better and protect the people that are inside the cab of the car.
So for a motor vehicle accident, car accident, you'll typically be called. You'll typically respond to that, or
yes.
Okay. I mean, you'll immediately respond, or you're not waiting to hear how. You'll just respond.
No, they call us out for any 1050 in the town because we don't know what their fluids or something could happen. Even on a minor accident, something could happen.
So you respond to all those.
Correct.
How frequently are you getting a response to that? Is that typically, I mean, at least every week or a few times a week even?
Probably. I think last month. I think it was like 17 times.
So about every other day or so?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Boy, fatal fires, of course, the last thing anybody wants to hear about. Were there some fatal fires in your tenure, or?
In the town?
Yeah.
I only can think of one fatal fire that we had in the town.
Really?
And I think Roy was chief then.
Huh.
That was back quite a few years ago.
Wow.
I went to the cities had a few that we were.
Yeah, I can recall some in the city.
Yeah, but other than that, I think that was the only one I do recall in the town.
Right.
So.
Back to the staffing issue. Firefighters at this point, they get a stipend if a firefighter is dealing with, say, a structure fire, or for that matter, anything, even a 1050.
Yeah.
Do they get paid for the time
They get paid a minimum of an hour.
Okay.
So our firefighters are $20 an hour.
Okay.
So if the call is less than an hour, they get an hour's pay.
Fair enough. And that sounds like that makes a ton of sense, at least paying these folks something, doesn't it?
Right. Well, when I first started, I think our stipend used to be like $63 a year.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, for no matter how.
That was it.
Really interesting. So now it's per call, which seems to make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So it's hourly per call.
Wow. So talk about I mean, your fire chief. What changed? I mean, just a lot of things changed during your many years as fire chief, or not so much. Was it just not
The biggest change was I couldn't go and do interior firefighting anymore, which was my passion.
Really?
I mean, I loved it, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
The warmer in there than it is outside. But
that was a health issue, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, when I was 40, I had a quad bypass.
Wow. Really?
So.
Boy, it didn't stop you from being chief, though.
No.
But again, kept you out of inside firefighting.
Yeah. But I mean, if it wasn't for the personnel, I probably would have got done a lot sooner than this.
Really?
But I had so much backing from the membership.
Talk about your day job. Is there a typical day, or is every day pretty different? Just sounds like that made a lot of sense to finally have kind of one full-time paid position.
Yeah, so it gives you the opportunity to really look into new equipment. If you want to purchase new equipment, you can get things set up to have demonstrations done. I mean, we just did it on rescue tools. We just purchased some new battery-operated electric rescue tools to put on the new truck. So it took quite a while for us to get all of that sorted out and all the information to the chief, so he knew exactly what each tool was, and we had the chance to demo them through 2 months. It took us that we demoed these tools, and so product. Looking up for product in equipment is pretty key to this job.
I bet.
And to make sure that everything's being done as far as for personnel safety, fit testing, which is what we're going through right now.
Fit testing.
Yeah, that's a VOSHA requirement that you have to be fit tested annually.
Oh yeah.
So any interior firefighter or anybody that wears a respirator has to be fit
getting
tested.
A physical or way more than
they
just
have to do it. They have to fill out a questionnaire. It has to go into their doctor. We used to do it through occupational health through NMC, which I guess they just closed this year. So
really,
but we were fortunate enough to get our questionnaires in and had them done prior to. So all of our guys were able to get the questionnaires analyzed and if there were any questions. So they have to do the questionnaire. If there's any questions, then they have to do a consultation with the physician. And then they might have to have other tests done prior to the fit testing. But once they're cleared for that, then they can do the actual fit test.
So equipment, just keeping up, and I'm sure there's new equipment all the time.
Yeah, all the time. So
and the messenger story mentioned Jaws of Life when you first got Jaws of Life, or they made some reference to that in the story.
Yeah. So back, I think it was in the early '80s. We had a very bad car accident on Route 7 in front of Eveready, and we had porta power back in those days, and the city had a porta power back in those days. Yeah. And there was just no getting this guy out of the car.
Is that right? You just couldn't get him out.
Missisquoi Valley Rescue showed up, and they had the first Jaws of Life in this area.
Oh, really?
But they were an ambulance service. Yeah. And they came and cut the guy out, and we said, you know something?
Wow, better get this.
It's time for the fire department to have something like that. So we did a joint effort with the city, call ourselves Rescue 6, and
Rescue 6.
We purchased the hydraulic tools. They purchased airbags. We tried not to duplicate equipment, and we responded together for quite a few years. And
I remember Rescue 6.
Yeah.
No longer with us. Is that long?
That's long gone.
Long gone.
Yeah. So
interesting. And the Marine unit, I remember that when that came, and you still have the Marine unit. Yeah,
we started out with a 19-foot Bayliner boat that we had purchased from a citizen resident of the town. Yeah. Gave us a good deal on the boat. We bought it. It stayed down at the Bay Dock for quite a few years.
Yeah, I remember it down there. Bay Dock that's still, of course, under water.
It's underwater right now. I've never seen it underwater this time of year.
You've got to be worried about next spring if we get a lot of precipitation over the winter.
And what's the ice going to do to the dock?
Yeah.
So, that was our first purchase. We bought it as an association and made payments on that. Put some people through dive training.
Wow.
And then we bought some cold weather suits and flotation devices for the boat and everything.
Wow.
And then, I don't know, I think it was when North Hero got a grant and they purchased their new boat that they currently have right now. Yeah. They had a boat that they were going to get rid of. And so they asked fire departments if anybody was interested in it. And there was 3 of us. And we ended up getting the boat.
Oh yeah, from the North Hero.
Yeah, so it actually was a Coast Guard boat, and then it went to really? I think it went to Mallett's Bay. And I said then it went to North Hero, and when North Hero gave it to us, there was head gasket problems with the motor. It had been overheated a little bit, and but they double gasketed it, and the guy told us, he said, it's worked for us, and we drove it for probably 3 or 4 years like that. Didn't have any problems with it, but it got to be where the alarm would go off every now and then, so we decided, let's just put a new motor on it. So we analyzed, we had the hull analyzed to make sure that it was worth putting another motor on it. And we put a new motor on it, and then probably 5 years after that, we decided it was time to start looking at another boat and possibly purchasing a boat, and we started looking at them, and they're going, wow.
Seems like I recall that being an issue with the select board.
Yeah,
There's some concern about what you might have to spend on that.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So everything that we were looking at was like in the $280,000 bracket.
Wow.
And I happened to be looking through this company called Fire Tech, and there was a boat just about what North Hero had, with the exception that this one had an onboard fire pump.
Huh.
And so they were asking $150,000 for it, I believe.
Huh.
And it was from Newcastle, Delaware.
Really?
So we went down
I drive through Newcastle every year on my southern trip in April.
So they lost their docking, and they had gotten that boat through a grant, and it was 10 years old. So they had the time frame that they needed for their grant was up. Yeah. They lost their docking, so it was too big of a boat for them to transport to do a rescue. So it was easier for a smaller boat. So they decided they wanted to get rid of it. When we went down, we tried it out, and the guys that were on the boat with us, you could see that. They didn't want to get rid of this boat. I mean, and we were out on the Delaware, and this thing was fantastic, this boat. Huh. And so we came back, and I wrote up a letter to the select board and asked permission to negotiate a price with these guys. And the worst case scenario, the only thing that we were really worried about, and I was talking to Mike Murdoch, who's the chief in North Hero that knows boats, and he said, if anything, he says, I'd worry more. He says, I've checked out the motors and stuff. He says, they're great. He says, they're in good shape, but they are 10 years old. He says, so maybe, if anything, you might want to say, this is what it's going to cost us to replace the motors. Will you give us? So I did. I made him an offer based on if we needed to replace those motors, and they took it.
Oh, really?
And so we replaced the motors 2 years ago.
How much was that?
110.
110.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we replaced the motors 2 years ago. I think it was like 42. Huh. So we were still in fairly decent shape, $2,000 more than what we were planning, but that was all installed and everything. So, and then we sold the old motors, which we weren't planning on happening, and we got like $8,000 for those. Really? So,
and you still have that? That's the boat you still have?
That's the boat we currently still have. Yes.
That's true. Yeah. How often does a marine unit get called? How active has that been? Probably in the summertime.
I'm going to say at least once a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, we have, and the biggest part is, on the most part, I think most of our rescues are out-of-staters.
Oh, is that right?
That don't know the lake. They've gone out at the wrong time. Yeah. And get caught up in a bad weather situation.
And a typical call would be, they've capsized, or their motor's just gone down, and they're out on the lake somewhere.
Most of the time, I think our biggest calls were kayakers this year. Really? But prior years, it was about either motor fail or out of gas or adrift, and so.
Interesting. And are you in service? Again, we just talked about the high lake level also. I was out of Kilcare a couple of days ago. Open water in mid-January a little, and even the inner bay. I suspect maybe now or later this week there'll be ice back in the inner bay at least. But
not a lot.
Pretty unusual.
Not a lot.
But is that marine unit, is that out of the water now?
It's out of the water. Okay. It's actually in the town garage. So if it needed to go out, it could go out.
Really? Interesting. But typically you put that in, is that like just April sometime or May, or pretty much just summer's obviously when you're getting most of your calls.
Yeah, we wait for some good winds and stuff to get everything off out of the lake, out of the water, anything that's drifting. Yeah. So we give it that little amount of time. Huh. Other than that, it's probably the first boat in and the last boat out.
Interesting.
We're very fortunate that Chuck Lowe gives us space down there at the marina.
Oh, yeah, great. And that's good.
So I want to put a plug in for him and thank him very much for everything he does. People don't think he does a lot for the community, but he does.
Yeah, that's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
And again, these are town fire department members. Are there some other people? And some of these folks have diving capability?
As far as the boat goes?
As far as the boat goes.
Anybody that's on the boat's a fire department member.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many folks have taken diving lessons and stuff?
The diving part hasn't been.
Has that not come into play really?
Not really. I don't think
obviously
we've ever.
You got Coast Guard in Burlington.
I think the only time we've actually ever put anybody in the water, we had a boat that was half sunk off from Ball Island one time, and we actually we didn't want the people to go out there and try and do something themselves, so we went out and we lifted the boat and towed it into shore. So our divers went in and did the strapping and stuff like that. So.
That's right. But that's been, you think that made sense to have a marine unit? That was a good thing to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are other departments along the lake? Are there other marine units from
Swanton actually
Swanton?
purchased our old
really?
boat. They have that one.
Interesting.
So, and the Swanton Police Department actually has the sheriff's old patrol boat.
No, really.
I say old. It's not that old.
But that comes in, I mean, that gets some use in the summer. You get X number
Yes.
of calls on that.
Mm-hmm.
Any changes you'd like to see in the department? Any other things you'd like to add?
I think that's all up to the new chief.
Yeah, up to the new chief.
Yeah.
And was Matt Munn, was he kind of the obvious?
I have all the faith in the world in him. I think he's going to do great.
And he sounds like he was a pretty obvious successor to you, Bob, would you say?
Yeah.
He was deputy chief?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are you, of course, you retired as chief. Are you still a member of the St. Albans Town Fire Department?
I am.
You are?
I am right now.
I guess, yeah. Interesting. So you would still respond? I mean, if need be, I mean, you
Yeah.
would still
Yeah.
go out?
Yeah, I responded. I went to the Bank Street fire. I went to the high winds that we had the other day. So
Boy, winds have been a real issue, huh?
terrible.
How'd the town fare with that? I know I lost power at my house in the city for a bunch of hours with that.
I think the city took more of a hit than
Yeah,
the
it
town
sounded
did
like
this
it.
time.
It sounded like it.
Absolutely, yeah, because they actually did a joint effort on getting a tree off trailer so they could get people out of the trailer on Pearl Street.
Yeah, well, of course, one of our producers, Alan Cunningham, that was Alan's house that got a huge hit from the tree.
Yeah.
With fortunately everybody downstairs, but pretty scary.
I was on my way to the fire station, and
Wow.
there was a tree down in front of the Sherrier farm, and so I said, well, I'll just get out and cut it. I had my chainsaw in the back of the truck. I said, I'll just get out and cut it, and I got out, and all of a sudden I watched this other tree come down, and the roots and all, and I'm going, nope.
Wow.
I got back in my truck and went over to Brigham Road, but the wind was just howling.
Wow. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you kind of made me think of some close calls with your decades of firefighting. I can only assume you had your share of some scary moments out there.
Yeah, there was quite a few scary moments. One moment was when we got blown out of the hallway on a structure fire down on, I'm thinking it was Huntington Street, Huntington or Jewel.
Yeah.
One of those two streets. Ended up going to the hospital on that one.
Really?
Yeah. A couple of us did.
Huh.
My was in and out.
Yeah.
So ended up going back. But I think my scariest moments were as chief when things happened as a chief.
Yeah.
So.
Jeez, I can't, boy, a lot of years. But again, I know you said in the messenger story, a job you wouldn't have had it any other way. I mean, a job you just loved.
Yeah.
Boy, it's just a lot.
I truly had a passion for this. Really did. Yeah.
Boy, you got to think. Unfortunately, I just wonder how many folks these days have a passion for something like that.
I think there's some out there. I'm going to say Chief Mulheron and most of the guys on the department still have that passion.
Yeah. So again, Chief Mulheron's in charge. I guess when the town fire department, the firehouse itself, is that maybe? Of course, you had a roof. Speaking of wind, some of the roof, part of the roof blew off a while back.
Flopped over on the addition.
And I've talked to the select board about this, but at some point it looks like you might need a new firehouse. Is that getting to that point? Would you say, or
when all that happened, they talked about it, and so I tried to move forward, and I guess the select board decided that they were going to put a hold on it. So.
Is that right? But at some point, that sounds to you like something they could use.
It's a temporary fix.
Is that right?
That building's a temporary fix.
Have you got enough room? Is there enough room in that building for your trucks? I don't see them outside, so that's not an issue.
No.
And I hear the issue of maybe a satellite station kind of on the north end of town. I hear that issue mentioned. Does that seem like not a big deal, not a big need to you, or ideally would you like to see that?
I don't think it's a big need because it just gives you more of a chance for something to happen with members having to go through the city with their own personal vehicles to get to the truck. Where they don't, it doesn't really happen that way right now. Most of our members live fairly close by to the fire station that we currently have.
Is that right? Yeah.
And so they're not driving through the city. Some of them have to drive through the city, but most of them will take like Nason Street or Brigham Road or so.
Yeah. Boy, so you mentioned response time. That's the key here.
Yeah, we have good response times, morning, noon, and night. I mean, it's pretty close to the same, just about depending on the call. I mean, if you have a call where it says no injury, vehicle accident with no fluids, no injuries or anything, that might take a little bit longer to respond to because we're not going to run red lights and sirens and have the chance of somebody getting hurt going to something like that. So.
Yeah. Any other issues that come to mind with the town fire department? Changes? Is it just maybe I asked you this before, but is it just much different these days than it was decades ago, being a firefighter, or not particularly?
I don't think. Well, of course, we're working. Everything is. All fires are hotter and smokier. They have more toxic gas. Smoke than than we used to have.
Oh, is that right?
Because of the glues and the materials that they use to build stuff with now.
Because of construction materials.
Right. So I mean we do protect them with the air packs that we have now and being pressure demand and so.
Boy. So Chief, down to a couple minutes. I'll look back and sounds like it's been again, you just spent your life dealing with this, but
it's been a great ride.
It's been a great ride.
Yeah.
What were some of the best moments? Were there, some situations where it looked like just kind of a hopeless situation that you were able to just do a much better, quicker job? Any just kind of moments that come to mind?
I don't see anything like that. I think our biggest accomplishments have been showing the state of Vermont that if you come here for any type of event, you're going to come to a first-class event. When we do the 9/11 remembrance in Taylor Park, we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have all the cooperation between both departments, city and town. And that's rewarding.
Yeah, I bet.
So that means more to me than I don't think we've ever had a situation where it looked like it was dire and then it turned halfway decent. A dire ended up being a dire, and we worked through it.
No, it sounds like St. Albans Town Fire Department sounds like it's just been a very well-regarded, well thought of, well-respected department.
I believe so.
Anyway, so you're retired as chief, but you're still with the department, and you have your day job.
And I have my day job.
Anyway, well, on that note, Chief, thanks a lot. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Richard.
Retired St. Albans Town Fire Chief Harold Bob Cross. Appreciate the time.
Thanks,
Richard.
Chief.
Thanks to producer Paul Snyder out there, and we appreciate you watching us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. See you next time. See ya.